Hey everyone, it's Alex. So I figured I'd make this video because it really bears mentioning because you see many proponents, or basically almost all proponents of the US presidential campaign of Senator Bernie Sanders, they hardly ever mention how sort of the issue of socialism at large, because pure socialism is something that even I'm against, because like with the government taking up all the income and just spreading it out evenly, there is almost no incentive for anyone to be creative or innovative or be entrepreneurial, to make businesses and really grow the economy that way. I mean, that's why we have huge buildings. That this sort of capitalism really helps our economy flourish, becoming more efficient and all that. But there needs to be we need to keep in mind the difference between his sort of democratic socialism, as it's called, and pure socialism, and communism, which is even worse than socialism because it involves the government sort of taking over. As I will quote from the National Geographic Knowledge Book. Let me get to the right page here. Okay. So, Stalin's terror regime in the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics, as they're called, which they're not republics. It was not a republic, and neither is China. I'm pretty sure, as it has been in the 20th century. After 1928, under Lenin's successor, Joseph Stalin, the country once and for all developed into a totalitarian dictatorship. And that's in reference in some other page. Farming was ruthlessly and forcibly collectivized, that is, made part of a state collective, where extreme industrialization was pushed forward. Actual and presumed political opponents were eliminated when the party, army, and administration regularly purged. By 1938, Stalin had murdered almost all of the old party and state elite while replacing them with loyal functionaries who built an unprecedented personality cult into motion. The Leninist dictatorship of the Communist Party changed to the dictatorship of one man that cost millions of lives. Today, regimes that mask the absolute power of one person or small group with socialist ideology are termed Stalinists. And there are other Stalinist regimes here mentioned, listed here. The one in, let me see here, I think it's Cambodia. Yeah, Cambodia and the China, or as it calls itself, the Republic of China. So there needs to be, when it comes to Bernie Sanders, not only is he not completely socialist, but he's also not completely communist either. So I will show you that in a few minutes, but I'll show you that, right now, basically. Let me get to this. Okay. So this is the one time, I'll admit, he hardly ever mentions the sort of distasteful aspects of socialism, at least complete socialism with authoritarianism and all that. He hardly ever mentions that. But this is one of the very few times that he did. Oh, give me a second. Let me mute my microphone.
So the next time that you hear me attacked as a socialist, like tomorrow, remember this. I don't believe government should take over, the grocery store down the street, or own the means of production. But I do believe that the middle class and the working families of this country who produce the wealth of this country deserve a decent standard of living, and that their incomes should go up, not down.
So there's that. So funny enough, like many people might say, oh, well, he wants more unemployment benefits, huh? Well, actually, no. You see, he definitely seriously wants the minimum wage for full-time work to be set to $15 instead of the 7.25 or 7.5 that it is at now for the whole country, that is. But he does. I've never heard him, and I've looked it up, and I haven't seen him notice that he's mentioned the unemployment benefits. He's pretty much not for increasing unemployment benefits. He wants more and more people to work full time, including the say 5% of the workforce that are working part-time or just little internships or assignments and such. He wants people to really have full jobs. Now, there's also this, where he is a proponent of the Fourth Amendment, as we call it. I guess I'll go to the transcript of the Bill of Rights here. As you can see, there's the basically quite unchanged. As you can see, there's like Article the First and the Second, which are sort of we consider them to be just part of the Constitution, not really the amendments. But here, where what we call the amendments begin. So here on the fourth one, a well-regulated militia for the right to keep and bear arms. There's that, which he is for, although he is against weapons of mass murder, as weapons of mass murder, assault weapons, shotguns, explosives have been used in all these mass murders. Columbine, Sandy Hook, of course, there's the one in Paris, and I forgot what the other one in California, I think it was, but in general, those events of mass murder, they were all made possible with those weapons of mass murder. But he is for the Second Amendment, when it comes to, say, pistols and hunting rifles for their purposes, just hunting in general. So here's him being a proponent of the Fourth Amendment.
And there's another issue that I want to very briefly touch on as well today, Mr. President. And that deals with the whole issue of the USA Patriot Act and FISA and civil liberties in this country. And let me just make a few basic points. There is nobody in the Senate, there is nobody in the House who does not understand that there are terrorist groups out there who want to attack the United States of America and our allies, who want to do us harm. And there's nobody in the Senate or in the House, or I think in the United States of America, who does not believe that as a nation we have got to do everything that we can to protect the people of our country from terrorist attacks. There is no debate on that. But what the debate is about is how do we protect the American people without undermining the Constitution of the United States of America or undermining the privacy rights of the American people. Mr. President, I intend to shortly introduce legislation which will call for a comprehensive review of data collection by public and private entities and the impact that that data is having on the American people. I don't know if this is a progressive piece of legislation or a conservative piece of legislation, but I would hope that this have broad support across the political spectrum from people who actually do believe in a free society, that our young people should not be worried about the kinds of books they read or the websites that they visit. Mr. President, we must bring together leaders in the technology world, people who not only know what technology today is doing in invading our privacy rights, but what the future holds, because I am quite certain that every single day this technology is growing more and more sophisticated and more intrusive. And sitting down with people who are experts on technology, we have got to have civil libertarians, people who understand what the First Amendment is, what the Fourth Amendment is, what our Bill of Rights is about, what our Constitution is about. And of course, involved in that discussion must be law enforcement and our security experts. And the goal of all of this must be to create legislation which does everything that we can to protect the safety of the American people, but also protects our privacy rights and our constitutional rights.
Okay, so there's one more thing I want to show you, and thus this is where, I leave it to you to make your own judgment. Think about that speech, what he believed in there. You can maybe think that he might have lied even. It's up to you. But think about that, and think about if Senator Sanders would actually bring in this sort of thing, which China is, it's been shown that China's, the Republic, as it's called, of China is about to implement sort of, less like a socially acceptable way to bring about its authoritarian regime and its control of basically its people in general.
Going under the innocuous name of Sesame Credit, China has created a score for how good a citizen you are. And that's one of the scariest things I've heard in quite a while. It's jointly run by Tencent, yes, that Tencent, the one that owns Riot Games and has a significant share in Epic and Activision Blizzard, and also the ascendant Chinese competitor to Amazon, Alibaba, hence the name Sesame. So the owners of China's largest social networks have partnered with the government to create something akin to the US credit score. But instead of measuring how regularly you pay your bills, it measures how obediently you follow the party line. They dredge data from your social network, so if you post pictures of Tiananmen Square or share a link about the recent stock market collapse, your Sesame Credit score goes down. Share a link from the state-sponsored news agency about how good the economy's doing, and your score goes up. But Alibaba and Tencent are also the largest online retailers in China, so Sesame Credit is also able to pull data from your purchases. If you're making purchases the state deems valuable, like work shoes or local agricultural products, your score goes up. If you import anime from Japan, though, down the score goes. And this score has real-world consequences. Like many games, Sesame Credit has tiers and levels, and having a high score gives you special benefits, like making it easier to get the paperwork you need to travel, or making it easier to get a loan. Now, currently, there are no consequences for having a low score, but there's been talk about implementing penalties once the system becomes mandatory in 2020. Penalties like slower internet speeds for low-scoring citizens, or even restricting the jobs that a low-scoring person's allowed to hold. But there's one more layer to Sesame Credit, and here's where this goes from being repulsive to downright insidious. Because this is all part of a social network, it also scans your friends. So you will lose points for having friends with low obedience scores. And it tells you this. At any point, anybody can check anyone else's score. And when you check your own score, Sesame Credit provides a handy map of your friends to show you who's dragging your score down. Have you ever had that thing where you play a game with somebody who wasn't doing very well, and you've tried to change their behavior to make them do better? Or maybe after a while, you just sort of stopped playing with the people who were holding you back? That's at the heart of how this system works. And it's also what makes this one of the most terrifying tools of authoritarian oppression I've ever read about. Because, like, mass censorship, jail time, assassinations, those are all big, messy implements for keeping a population in line. That messiness and severity foster resentment, eventually rebellion. They're expensive, they're unwieldy. In the end, those tools are impossible to maintain. But social pressure? Ostracization? Those things are free. They happen on their own. And as a government tool, they don't have nearly the same potential for going embarrassingly, disastrously wrong. With a system like this in place, a government doesn't even have to tell neighbor to spy on neighbor, to rat each other out, because that's all built into a seemingly innocuous game system. The government need not step in. Re-education will be handled for them by friends. friends, classmates, and relatives who want to maintain a high score. And if that doesn't work, then potentially dangerous ideas still end up quarantined by the social isolation this game system causes.
So there's that. Now, if you ask me, there's basically, a very small chance, there's no chance that Bernie Sanders is, wanting to implement something like that or any other kind of serious communist regime idea into America. So I leave it up to you. Personally, I agree with basically all oh my, this is not really going so well, the recording. Well, anyways, so I agree with basically all that he says there. Might have to stop this here. Yeah.